Research firm and think tank Steers has released a report in collaboration with Sterling Bank on solar energy in Nigeria. The report essentially discusses how solar energy can help solve Nigeria's energy crisis that's impacting everyone from individuals to households to businesses. Joining us to discuss further, we've got from Sterling Bank, Dele Faseemo, who is the head of oil and gas and power at Sterling Bank. Dele, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So can you take us through the key findings of this report?
Thank you very much, Rochuzan, for having us. Good afternoon. Certainly, the report reflects a number of findings that, already confirm some of the understanding that we had about the electricity market in Nigeria. Most significantly, the fact that the electricity penetration rate, or if you like, access to electricity, is significantly low at lower than 50% of Nigerians having a supply from the grid. And of course, the rest being powered either through their own personal means or not having access at all. The other element of it is that this is actually the worst electricity situation in the world. This is alarming, but we can feel the pain every moment within the country. Of course, there are other revelations from the study, which Steers did in conjunction with Sterling, which include the fact that, Nigerians do not really, Nigerians are not quite keen in paying for electricity. And it's not because they don't want to pay. I think historical lack of trust, with supply or poor supply from the grid. And of course, there are aggregate collection and technical losses, even for those who get supply. The collection infrastructure is still very weak, and there are issues across multiple segments of the industry, from generation, bedeviled with gas supply issues, to transmission, which is sitting right in the middle of the value chain, and of course the distribution issues. A myriad of issues and problems. And of course, one of the key highlights of the report is how do we answer the question about meeting the electricity gap and curing the energy poverty in Nigeria, and the role that renewables and alternative sources of energy can play, particularly when they are deployed off-grid, and they can be deployed rapidly to meet the needs of the people.
Excellent stuff. We had that's really just a terrible cycle. I think we'll put that back up, where you already talked about it. Nigerians not being, yes, there it is. I mean, Dele, this is this really is as bad as it gets. So Nigerians don't want to pay higher tariffs. There's poor collection rates. There's poor revenue intake. The value chain, the discos complaining about not being able to collect, the gencos not being owed this, then no infrastructure, equipment upgrades, low quality electricity, and it just goes. I mean, this is from the report. This is from your reports with Steers. So are you optimistic about breaking this this spiral, this cycle that we're looking at here?
Absolutely, Rotus. This can be broken. And I think the first level is to demonstrate what is possible. You could say Nigerians don't really want to pay higher tariff. But again, if one energy is delivered, because of the unique and strategic importance of energy to everybody, households, to businesses, and of course to the nation at large, once that level of trust is built and restored, I'm very confident that Nigerians will actually be willing to pay for what is available, for what is delivered to them when they need it, and of course, especially when it is clean and devoid of all the usual stress of blackout and maintenance and grid collapse and all of those issues.
What's the, maybe this is an obvious question, the impact of this electricity deficit on individuals, households, and businesses?
Thanks. The impact is naturally felt and at multiple levels. So let's begin with how a typical individual or household feels the pain when there is power outage. The general discomfort and blackout at a very basic level. But then again, when you move it a little higher, the lack of ability to actually be productive, so linked to poor access to electricity, or which is we generally refer to as energy poverty, is the real poverty itself, the real economic poverty, when people are not able to produce and to generate income. And of course, when you bring the impact of electricity to bear on all the other sectors that we interact with every day, for those who've been to hospitals and they've experienced blackout when a medical procedure, for example, or a surgical procedure is ongoing, I'm not sure anybody needs to tell them the impact the lack of power supply can have. Or in fact, in education, in agriculture, in transport. We're not even speaking about the impact of this on the environment, because that's at the very high level when in societies that are right now concerned about the environment. But again, we need to bear that in mind, that when there is power outage or grid collapse and people have to resort to other alternative sources that are not clean, the damage it does to the environment and to people's health from noise, inability of people to sleep well, and from smoke. And then when you transition that to the corporate level, businesses shutting down simply because they don't have power to run their factory. And of course, this aggregates at the level of the nation, where GDP growth is stunted and there's massive unemployment, feeding insecurity. The implications are almost endless, and they are all interconnected.
Thank you very much for that. Very, very in-depth on the impact there. So can you talk about the need for solar energy amid today's energy crisis, which is part of your report with Steers?
Thanks. The need for solar energy is beginning with the need for energy itself. So we have a grid system and infrastructure that hasn't been able to deliver electricity to the country for several years. And it's not for lack of try on the part of the government, and it's not for lack of willingness on the part of the general citizenry. So that at the basic level is the need for energy. And I think where solar comes in is when we now beginning to take a step back to find out, how do we solve for this problem? Are there alternative ways by which energy can be generated and delivered in this country? And the answer is yes. We're speaking about alternative energy. We're speaking about clean energy. So if you look at the various benefits of renewables, for example, beginning with the fact that it represents the opportunity to deploy most rapidly, right, and within the shortest time possible, compared to a thermal plant or a hydropower plant, for example. If we take one household, one small businesses at a time away from the grid and get them connected to electricity through distributed PV panels in their homes, this solves the problem in the immediate. It doesn't require time. It's plug and play, right? And in fact, when we move that into commercial and industrial, once the equipment is procured, installation within a few months can be completed, and businesses can continue with their productive life. That's one. And the second part on top of that is that this system is scalable. So, for example, households can begin to, supply themselves electricity from solar systems with a smaller capacity system, 2 batteries, 4 batteries, and they can incrementally change that, to higher capacity. And of course, it's clean, is without stress, maintenance free over time. And if you look at the overall costs on a long-term basis, it makes sense both for households, for small businesses, and for commercial and industrial users to actually consider renewable off-grid, especially solar, because once you lock in the price at the beginning, even though it may seem a little high, but you have a fixed cost that can be spread over several years, up to 10 to 15 years. And of course, it becomes more economically viable when you consider the fact that the alternative to that, which is diesel and grid, continue to experience rising tariffs and costs of these products and electricity. So really, we can go on and on about the benefits of going off-grid and particularly of going renewable, especially with solar.
Thank you for that. Look, you did mention that the cost over over a period of time, it evens out, which suggests that there are some higher upfront costs. And there was a chart we just had from the report showing the use of power between residential, commercial, and so on. In Nigeria, I believe, according to the report, residential households use the most power compared to Ghana and I think South Africa. So what about the cost? There it is. That's the chart right there. So Nigeria compared to, I guess, Africa as a whole, and then we've got India rather. We use most of the sectors that use power are residential. So what about the cost of solar, Dele? Doesn't that put it, I guess that initial cost, doesn't it put it beyond the reach of many, since it's residential households that use up the most power in Nigeria?
That may seem so at the beginning, but in reality, over the life of those assets, the average cost is much lower. And this is the breakdown of it. Of course, today, acquiring a typical size, medium size or small size even, for what a household requires for basic electricity, and maybe television, fan, charge your phones and laptops, compared to a generator, maybe petrol generator, the cost of a solar system will most certainly be much higher. However, you have to consider the overall cost, both monetary and otherwise, of maintaining and fueling that generator versus a solar system that requires little or no maintenance over time, that requires no fueling over time. The natural resource is the sun, doesn't charge us any dime in order to plug into it. And of course, because the acquisition or the entry cost may be a little higher than what majority of people can afford, there are financing options that are available that makes it, or make it possible for people to pay over time. Either they take a direct loan or they take advantage of the sort of solutions that are available with Stellium and some of our affiliates, which is power as a service, in which case they do not have to take a loan, neither do they have to own the asset or bother about installation or insurance or maintenance costs if there's any. They just agree a fixed monthly charge and they get connected and they enjoy electricity supply 24 hours without bothering to wake up in the middle of the night to turn on generator or without watching out for news about grid collapse. So this is the way we're looking at it, actually. Thanks.
Great stuff. All right. So those financing options for solar energy solutions for households, I just want to make sure they are practical. What you've just discussed now, in fact, not only for households, but businesses as well. Those solar financing options they exist and they are practical.
Absolutely, they exist and they are practical. They are available, and there are thousands of people today who are already benefiting from these solutions. Indeed, one of the things that we've decided to get involved in is demand aggregation and creating a digital marketplace where people can actually go shop for renewable energy products. There are vendors online who sell, and right there online, you could get your credit rating done, and you could actually get a loan approved for you to buy the product of your choice immediately. And standing behind that are tens of vendors, accredited vendors, who would then deploy, install for you. One of the strategic problems we're solving with this platform actually is to solve for trust, which became a problem historically when people brought in substandard products, and of course to solve the financing problem at the same time.
Great stuff. And so what real life case studies or examples of large off-grid solar products can we point to in a minute if you can?
There are many in Nigeria today, particularly in a few federal universities. If you go to Bayero University in Kano, they've got a hybrid solution, solar installation of about 7 megawatt powering the community. The Federal University of Agriculture in Makurdi is an example, and various other institutions of learning. The Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing in Abuja, I think I've got a 1.5 megawatt solar installation powering that facility. And in fact, there are many of such installations going on today. And I shouldn't fail to mention that as Stellium, we're walking the talk. We are very close to completing installation of just below 1 megawatt of solar system, which is particularly unique and different from even the existing ones. This is called the building integrated photovoltaic panels. We're wrapping a 17-story building, which is the head office of Sterling, with specialized solar panels, and that will be enough to power the head office of the bank. So we're doing this as additional test case to show people that this system actually works and can actually supply the energy requirements of not only households and small businesses, but for large-scale commercial facilities indeed.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. Dele Faseemo, Head of Oil and Gas, Power and Renewable Energy at Sterling Bank. Once again, this is a collaboration with Steers Business. Great report, and we appreciate your time.